I don't think I'll ever forget those nights on the country roads. It all started a few weeks ago. I wrapped up a long faculty meeting and decided to take the back roads home. I liked the quiet out there, especially at night. But this time was different. As I drove, everything felt normal at first. I could see the stars through my windshield. But soon the road twisted like a snake, and darkness settled in. A strange unease started creeping up my spine. I shook my head and told myself I was just tired. Then past a stretch of trees, I saw something move. It was dark and shadowy, just out of reach of my headlights. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. I glanced in my rearview mirror, but nothing was there. It felt weird, like I blinked and it vanished. I blamed it on my exhaustion. The next night I drove the same route again. I felt a mix of hesitation and determination. I told myself it was just a fluke. But halfway back, my heart sank. There they were again, two figures standing close together. They were almost hidden by the trees, silent and unnerving. I hit the brakes, my breath catching in my throat. It felt like they were staring straight at me. I didn't know what to do. I thought about turning around but instantly felt trapped between fear and curiosity. I clenched the steering wheel and pushed the gas pedal down. The road blurred beneath me, and I felt a rush of relief as I left them behind. But the next night was worse. Shadows flickered by my vision and I swore I heard whispers. I couldn't make any words, but the sound made my skin crawl. I didn't want to find out who, or what, was lurking in those woods. Still, home was calling me, and I had to drive back. I took deep breaths to calm myself. It felt foolish to be scared. As I passed the trees again, my heart dropped. Something flashed in the headlights. There they were, closer and moving toward my car. Panic surged through me and I pressed down on the gas, feeling my heart leap up into my throat. Then, I heard a voice. It was soft, almost sweet, whispering, "Why are you ignoring us?" I twisted in my seat to look around, but the road was empty. A scream clawed at my throat as I hit the accelerator with everything I had. When I got home, I slammed the door behind me. I locked it and sank to the floor, my heart racing. I thought about those figures, and I couldn't shake them from my mind. Were they ghosts, or figments of my tired imagination? I still don't know. Even now, when I pass that stretch of road, I can't help but look toward the trees. I wonder if they're still there, waiting for me to come back to the country roads late at night. The next few nights passed without incident. I had convinced myself that it was over. Maybe the figures were just a trick of the mind, something to scare myself with when the world outside got too quiet. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that easy. The memory clung to me like a heavy coat, impossible to shake off. Then came a Saturday when I had to meet my friend Lisa for dinner. I chose a restaurant a bit further from home, hoping the noise and laughter would drown out my fears. I was seated at a corner table trying to catch up with her, but my mind was elsewhere. The country roads loomed in my thoughts, each twist and turn like a siren's call. "Are you okay?" Lisa asked, her voice pulling me back to reality. "Yeah, just thinking about the drive home," I replied, forcing a smile. "Those quiet roads can be creepy at night," she said, a teasing grin on her face. "You should take the highway." But I didn't want to give in. I felt it was a test I had to face. After dinner, I bid Lisa goodbye and drove toward the familiar path, fists clenched on the steering wheel. I felt foolish as I entered the darkness, telling myself that everything would be fine. But as I approached the stretch of trees, my heart began to race. The air felt thick, and the silence was deafening. I held my breath, almost expecting to see the figures again. This time, however, there was nothing. Just darkness. I laughed a little to myself, feeling ridiculous for being so anxious. Perhaps this drive would finally put my fears to rest. Then, just as I passed the tallest tree, something caught my attention. A small flicker of light flickered at the edge of the road. It was soft and pulsing, like a firefly, but much larger. I slowed down, curious and cautious. That's when I saw it. The light danced, swaying slightly, and then dimmed. My heart skipped a beat. Without thinking, I rolled down my window, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever it was. The light flickered again and then vanished. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I turned my head quickly, and there they were. The figures stood at the tree line, just as I had seen before. But this time, they weren't still. They were moving closer, gliding towards me like smoke on the breeze. The panic surged back. I slammed my foot on the gas, my tires screeching as I sped away, adrenaline flooding my veins. A sense of urgency gripped me tighter than before. I glanced in the rearview mirror. They were still there, shadows merging with the dark. But something else was strange. Just as I turned a sharp corner, I could have sworn I heard that same whisper again, this time more insistent and filled with a strange longing. "Why do you run?" That voice echoed in my mind, mixing with the sound of my heart pounding. I pushed the gas pedal down harder, desperate to escape. The figures, the voice, the light, all of it felt connected, like a puzzle I couldn't piece together. But deep down, I knew I had to confront it. I would have to face whatever was waiting for me on those country roads. I got home and locked the door, breathless, but as I leaned against the door I couldn't shake the feeling. Something was still out there, watching. And now, it felt like they wanted me to return. The sun hung low the next day, casting long shadows that made everything feel just a bit off. I tried to shake off the night's events. I even planned to avoid the roads that haunted me, choosing the busy streets instead. But as the sky turned deep orange, a fight brewed inside me. I couldn't let fear dictate my life. I found myself at home, pacing the living room. The walls felt confined, almost suffocating as they echoed with the memory of whispered questions. "Why do you run?" It played over and over in my head like a broken record. It gnawed at me. My curiosity began to creep back in, feeding on my fear. I grabbed my jacket, determined to finally seek out whatever I had glimpsed the previous night. If I could just get close enough, perhaps I could understand what was happening. I drove back to that road, every bump and turn steeped in tension. When I reached the familiar spot, I parked and stepped outside. The night air was cool and crisp, the kind that seemed to hold secrets. I felt the weight of silence around me. But I wasn't alone. It felt alive, buzzing with an otherworldly energy. My breath clouded in the still air as I walked toward the tree line. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it again. That flickering light, pulsing softly. My heart raced, but a strange mixture of fear and wonder pushed me forward. I followed it deeper into the trees, each step feeling heavier than the last. Just as I thought I was close enough, the light vanished. I stopped, my pulse racing. "What's happening?" I whispered to myself. Suddenly that whisper echoed through the trees, now layered with urgency. "Come closer." I shivered, but I felt a pull, an urge to comply. I stepped further into the darkness, directly toward where the light had been. Then things changed. I felt a sudden shift in the air like I was being enveloped. I turned to run, but then I stumbled over something on the ground. I fell hard, catching myself on my hands. My heart raced as I looked down to see what I had tripped over. It was a small, dusty object, a mirror. But it wasn't just any mirror. The surface was foggy, swirling with shades of dark and light. I picked it up, my breath catching in my throat. It seemed to hum with an energy I couldn't ignore. Through the haze I thought I could see movement, fleeting images that looked familiar. I very nearly dropped it, but instead I gripped it tighter, leaning closer to see more. That's when everything went dark. The buzzing in my ears stopped, leaving only the sound of my breath as the world around me faded away. Before I could process what was happening, I felt a force pull me back and a chill running along my spine. "You shouldn't have come," said a voice low and echoing. I froze. The figures returned, but this time I could see them clearer, their eyes shimmering like the moon reflecting on the water. They were no longer mere shadows. They stood right in front of me, and I realized I was unprepared for what was about to unfold. I focused on the figures, hardly daring to breathe. Their haunting eyes cut through the darkness, bright and alive. I wanted to ask who they were, what they wanted, but words caught in my throat. Instead, a suffocating silence filled the air between us. One of them, taller than the others, stepped forward. Its features were difficult to grasp, like trying to remember a dream upon waking. The head tilted slightly, considering me as if I were a curiosity, a puzzle waiting to be solved. "Why have you come?" it asked, a voice flowing like water, both soothing and chilling. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but my body felt frozen in place. The mirror felt heavy in my grasp, as if it were a bridge between us. "You can see us," the figure continued, a hint of surprise in its tone. "Not many can." What are you?" I finally managed to stutter. "We are the Watchers," another figure said, its voice more melodic, layered with a softness that contradicted its eerie presence. "We observe while you sleep. But you? You have crossed into our world." A shiver ran down my spine. "I didn't mean to," I whispered, glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see an escape route. "Meaning is irrelevant," the tall figure replied. "You chose to seek the truth." "Truth?" I echoed, feeling the weight of their words settle over me. The mirror seemed to pulse in response, and I felt a tingling awareness. The quiet around me stirred again, as if the very air buzzed with anticipation. "Yes," the melodic voice continued, "your journey has led you here, and it is no accident." Just then, the energy shifted. A gust of wind rushed through the clearing, causing the figures to flicker like flames. I staggered back. "What do you want from me?" My heart hammered now, a frantic rhythm pushing me toward flight. "You must choose," the tall figure seemed to say, its shadow stretching as the wind tossed empty leaves around our feet. "Either turn back, forgetting all you have seen, or step into the light and know the secrets we hold." The forest whispered in response, a haunting melody that felt both alluring and terrifying. My mind raced, weighing the choice. The mystery that drew me in felt heavier than I could comprehend. "I can't. I don't know what's at stake," I said, panic creeping in deeper. The mirror pulsed again, and I realized it was reflecting more than just my image. It showed moments of my life flashing by, intertwined with visions of darkness. The figures leaned closer, their shimmering eyes locked onto mine. "Only you can decide, but time is running out." A crack echoed through the trees, a sharp, sudden sound that set my nerves on fire. I felt it, a new energy building, something dark approaching. "What do you mean?" I gasped, and then I sensed it. Whatever was coming was not friendly. "Choose now," the tall figure insisted. I blinked hard, my heart racing. I had to make a decision fast. Just as uncertainty threatened to overwhelm me, the ground beneath my feet started to shake. That dark energy loomed larger and more threatening. I turned back to the figures. "What happens if I choose the light?" "Then you will know," they said in unison, their voices a haunting echo in my mind. "Know what?" I cried. But before they could answer, a shadow merged from the trees, an indistinct figure emerging, moving toward us. The figures looked panicked now, their shimmering eyes wide. "Choose!" the tall one shouted, and I stood frozen, the mirror trembling in my hand as the darkness drew closer. Everything blurred around me. The shadow grew, a mass of swirling darkness creeping toward the light of the figures. I could feel the energy shift, a palpable tension filling the clearing. My instinct to run battled against my desire to know. "Choose!" the tall figure shouted again. The darkness loomed larger, and I felt a cold wave wash over me. I tightened my grip on the mirror. It pulsed again, a rhythm that echoed my racing heart. I had to decide. "Okay," I yelled, my voice cracking. "I choose the light." As the words left my mouth, the air shimmered. The figures brightened, their forms becoming more defined, glowing like phosphorescent stars in the night. They reached out, their hands beckoning me closer. "Step forward," the melodic voice urged, a hint of urgency threading its tone. But just as I took a shaky step, the shadow lunged. It twisted and writhed, extending threatening tendrils toward us. I felt a jolt of fear, seeing the figures shift from calm to alarmed in the blink of an eye. "No," the tall one called out, its voice sharp. "Not yet. You must endure." Endure? What did that mean? My stomach dropped as dread clawed at me. The ground continued to quake as the dark presence swirled, so close I could feel its oppressive weight on my chest. I stumbled back, uncertain. The comfort of the figures felt too far away now. "Be brave," the faster voice urged, their hands still reaching for me. "You must understand. The light reveals truths, and darkness consumes." I hesitated. Another tendril shot out, brushing my arm like ice. I gasped. The figures reacted in unison, their faces morphing with urgency. "You have chosen, but you'll need to confront what lurks behind." Then, as if on cue, the mirror flared bright. It showed me a scene from my childhood, a moment I had almost forgotten. I saw myself, standing in a darkened room, whispering a name in fear. The shadow shifted again, morphing into a twisted resemblance, something I had long buried. I turned back to the figures. "Why are you showing me this?" I cried, panic sharpening my voice. Through the chaos, the tall one spoke again. "Your past feeds the darkness. You must face it." I felt trapped. The past, the shadow, and the light swirled around me. With every ounce of willpower, I moved closer to the illuminated figures, clenching the mirror tightly. I don't want to forget anymore. A blinding light burst forth from the mirror, shooting out into the darkness. The shadows recoiled, and the figures surged with energy. "Yes," they exclaimed, their voices harmonizing in excitement. The light wrapped around me, warm and inviting, pulling me into its embrace. I felt the past surge forward, and with it came the fear I had tried so hard to flee. The sensation of being seen washed over me. The watchers, the secrets, my own fears. They all swirled in a wild storm within me. "Embrace the light," they urged. "Only then can you break free." The shadow writhed and shrieked, angered by the illumination. I took a deep breath and plunged forward, drawing strength from the figures. But just as I felt a surge of hope, an echoing voice boomed from the dark. "You will never escape." Then, everything went dark. I gasped as darkness swallowed me. I blinked rapidly, trying to find my bearings, but everything was a murky void. The voices of the figures faded into silence, leaving an unsettling stillness in their place. I felt around, but the air was thick, as if it were pressing down on me. "Hello?" My voice cracked. There was no response. Panic surged again. I could almost hear the echo of that booming voice telling me I wouldn't escape. I stumbled forward, squinting into the blackness, feeling the coolness of the ground beneath my feet. Suddenly, a faint light flickered in the distance, like a distant lantern in the night. I hesitated. Was it real or just a trick of my mind? Steeling myself, I moved toward the light. With each step, the faint glow grew stronger. As I approached, I could see shapes forming around it. A grove of trees, twisted and gnarled, leaning inward. The light spilled from what looked like an old stone well at the grove's center. When I reached the well, the light pulsed rhythmically like a heartbeat. I peered inside, but it was too dark to see the bottom. As I leaned closer, a chilling recognition washed over me. The steady pulse mirrored the rhythm of the mirror in my hand. "Where am I?" I whispered, half to myself. Then my heart raced. Could I still hear the figures, guiding me from the light? Or was I truly alone in this darkness? Just then, I noticed something sticking out from the edge of the well. Something reflective. My breath caught. I reached in and pulled it out. It was a piece of shattered mirror, glinting in the light. As I turned it in my hands, I spotted something disturbing. A fragmented reflection of my own face, twisted and scared. The pulse of the light intensified, and I felt a pull, urging me closer. Memories from moments I had long avoided flashed before my eyes, fueling an internal struggle. The fear gripped me, but then came a surge of defiance. I wouldn't let the darkness win. "Embrace the light," I whispered to myself, remembering the voices. I leaned over the well more, feeling the warmth fight against the cold creeping up from behind. Just as I was about to lean into the light, a screeching sound erupted from the shadows behind me. I spun around, heart racing. Standing at the edge of the grove was a figure cloaked in black, featureless and looming. It separated the light from me. My pulse quickened at the sight of it. "You thought you could escape?" it hissed. I felt my resolve fading. The figure's presence pressed in on me, the memories pushing closer too, murky visions of what I had tried so hard to forget. I wanted to scream, but the sound caught in my throat. I was cornered, out of options. "Get away!" I shouted, but it felt weak against the chilling void surrounding us. The shadow began to shift, coiling like smoke. It moved closer, and my instincts screamed at me to run. But what lay behind me was just as terrifying. That's when I saw it. A glimmer near the well entrance, a hint of something more, a way forward. But would it lead to safety, or deeper into the dark? I had to make a choice, but time was running out. I felt the pulse of adrenaline rushing through me as the cloaked figure glided forward. It was all-consuming, that darkness, threatening to wrap me in its icy embrace. The faint glimmer near the well nagged at my mind, pulling me toward the unknown. I didn't have time to think. I just needed to act. I took a hesitant step back, eyeing the flickering light from the well. It felt like a portal, promising something beyond this looming shadow. I knew if I hesitated too long, the figure would swallow me whole. "Go!" I yelled, though my voice shook. I turned toward the glimmer, my feet pounding against the ground as I moved. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to keep running. But just before I reached the edge, the figure lunged at me, its empty hood threatening to engulf me. I swerved wildly, barely grazing past its outstretched hand. The air crackled around me, and I stumbled toward the well. The light pulsed again, sending a shockwave of warmth through my veins. I could almost taste the freedom it promised. But then I felt a force pulling at my clothes, dragging me backward. I resisted, feeling the cold brush against my skin, the shadow attempting to reel me in. I lunged for the well, ignoring the screams of fear clawing at my throat. "Help!" I shouted as I reached the edge. Without thinking, I let go of the mirror fragment. It fell into the abyss below, and the light surged upwards, illuminating the grove for the first time. The trees around me twisted in agony, their bark peeling and darkening with the brightness. In that moment I saw them, a crowd of shadows gathering behind the featureless figure. Different forms converging, some shifting and reshaping, while others moved like vapor. They were all staring at me, eyes gleaming with a malicious interest, as if I was the entertainment in their dark play. "Foolish girl," the hooded figure hissed, its voice reverberating through the grove. "You think you can escape the truth?" My heartbeat quickened, confusion flooding in. The truth? What truth? I had no time for questions. I had to act. I felt the warmth of the well battling the icy tendrils that were inescapably pulling at me. I launched myself over the edge, not even aware of the consequences. I hoped whatever lay at the bottom was better than what I faced. The light enveloped me, and suddenly everything turned white. Then, an icy grip seized my arm just as panic surged. I felt myself being yanked backward. The brightness splintered, flickering like a dying flame, and then it was gone, plunging me back into the smothering darkness. "Do you really want to know?" whispered a new voice, this one soft yet filled with malice. A chilling shiver raced down my spine. My body froze, caught between the pull of the light that once drew me and the cold grasp of an unknown entity, both promising release and danger. But before I could respond, everything jerked violently. A sensation of being torn in two engulfed me. I braced myself for the unknown, but I felt echoes of laughter swirling around me, and I knew this wasn't over yet. What awaited me in the void left to discover? I gritted my teeth, determination flooding back. I had come too far to let fear win now. Everything spun around me like a tempest. The laughter faded, but the cold fingers of dread clung to my skin. I braced for impact, expecting to hit something solid, but instead, I fell through what felt like nothingness. After what felt like an eternity, I landed with a thud on the ground. I gasped, my lungs aching as I tried to catch my breath. Blinking against the blurriness, I stared into the dim light around me. I was in a narrow tunnel. What had happened? Had I really jumped into the well? The air felt thick and heavy, wrapping around me like a wet blanket. Shadows danced at the edges, and I struggled to focus. Behind me, I could see the swirl of what was left of the light, the well's glow, an echo fading into the distance. Ahead, a faint illumination flickered, I pushed myself to my feet, unsteady. The uncertainty gnawed at me, but curiosity propelled me forward. I moved cautiously, the sound of my footsteps echoing off the damp stone walls. Each step brought new sounds and whispers, like secrets being exchanged just out of reach. Then I heard it, a shuffling noise, unmistakable and close. My heart raced. I ducked behind a jagged rock formation, pressing against the cool surface. I squinted into the shadows, desperation narrowingly my focus. What if it was one of the shadowy figures? What if it was worse? The tunnel stretched on endlessly. I held my breath, straining to hear. There it was again. Footsteps. I dared to peek out from my hiding spot. Just ahead, a figure emerged. It was indistinct, cloaked like the others, but there was something different. This one seemed hesitant, as if it was cautious about its own movements. "Show yourself," I called out, my voice echoing unnervingly down the tunnel. I knew it was risky, but I couldn't let fear dictate my actions. The figure froze, its head swiveling toward me. A heartbeat passed, and then it began moving again. Slowly, it stepped into the light, revealing a pale face. It looked at me, eyes wide open, almost pleading. I read fear there, not malice. "Please," it said, its voice shaky. "You don't understand what's coming." "What do you mean?" I demanded. I was bewildered, caught between wanting answers and my instinct to run. Everyone wants it. The truth. It's powerful here. But it comes at a price. I felt an unsettling chill crawl up my spine. What kind of price? But before the figure could answer, a rush of air filled the tunnel, and the ground shook beneath me. I was thrown off balance, stumbling back against the rock. An ominous rumble echoed, and shadows began to coalesce around the figure, thickening like smoke. "Run!" it shouted, panic breaking its voice. "They're coming!" I didn't need to be told twice. I turned and ran through the tunnel, adrenaline fueling my every move. Whatever that figure was warning me about, I had to get away before it found me, or worse, before I stumbled upon the truth. Then I heard them. Multiple footsteps gaining ground behind me. The darkness began to surge like a tide rising to consume me. That's when I saw it. A narrow opening ahead, glowing faintly. Would I fit? I had no choice. I sprinted toward it, the shadows hot on my heels. Fear flooded my veins. Would this lead me to safety, or would it trap me further in darkness? I leaped for the opening and felt the sharp edges of the world drop away. I tumbled through the opening and landed hard on cool, wet grass. The air smelled fresh, a stark contrast to the dampness of the tunnel. I blinked against the sudden brightness, trying to steady my breath. I was outside. It felt surreal. The moon hung low, casting silver light across a wide, empty field, and I could see trees lining the edges. But where was I? Panic threatened again, but I shoved it down. I had to think clearly. The peaceful scene was misleading. I could still hear the echoes of the shuffling footsteps from the tunnel, and desperation clawed at me. I scanned my surroundings, trying to figure out my next move. Just then, I noticed something. Movement along the tree line. I crouched low, instinctively seeking shelter. My heart pounded as I focused my gaze. The figures were back. Dark shapes glided between the trees, their forms indistinct but undeniably present. They were searching for something, or someone. My stomach twisted. "Is anyone here?" I whispered, hoping the figure from before would appear. But no one answered. Only the rustle of the grass in the cool breeze was my company. I felt utterly alone. After a tense moment, I forced myself to stand. I needed to get moving. I took a step forward but quickly stumbled on an uneven patch of earth, falling onto my hands and knees. A wave of embarrassment washed over me, but I couldn't let it linger. I got back up, brushing dirt from my clothes. That's when I noticed something faint glowing among the grass. I knelt again, heart racing as I reached for it. It was a pendant, a small silver locket engraved with intricate patterns. It felt warm in my palm. It was out of place, like a remnant of a world that had somehow crossed paths with mine. Just then, a shadow flickered behind me. I straightened up, clutching the locket tightly. I twisted around to see one of the figures, its form illuminated in the moonlight. It was unmistakably human, but its features were obscured by a hood. "Give that back," it commanded, voice sharp and urgent. I felt a chill at its tone. "What is this?" I said, holding up the locket. "Is it yours?" "Yes," it replied, stepping closer. "You have no idea what you're holding. It's everything you need to escape, but you must trust me." Suspicion loomed large. Could I trust this figure after everything I'd already experienced? Before I could decide, a sound echoed from the direction of the trees. The other figures were coming closer. "They're here!" the cloaked figure exclaimed, urgency spilling from its voice. "You need to hurry!" Panic surged, and I turned to run again, but the figure blocked my path. "Wait! If you leave now, you'll never understand the truth." I hesitated, unsure. Footsteps thundered in the distance. "Trust me," it insisted, the shadows closing in around us. Everything within me shouted to flee, but something in that figure's gaze held me still. I could face whatever was coming, or I could pursue the truth it offered. And then, amidst the chaos, I made my choice. "What do we do?" I asked, breathless. Before it could answer, darkness enveloped me again, and I felt myself slipping away. I gasped for air as the world around me shifted from a gloomy fog to a radiant light. The sensation was jarring, like bursting through the surface of water after holding my breath for too long. I blinked against the brightness, disoriented, yet strangely alert. "Welcome back," a voice said, smooth and calm. I turned to see the cloaked figure standing next to me, no longer in shadow. Its hood had fallen back, revealing a familiar face, one that sent an electric shock through my veins. It was my own reflection, but with sharper angles and knowing eyes. Where am I?" I stammered, taking a step back. Confusion clouded my mind. Pieces of my experience felt entangled in a web of unreason. Everything swirled like a dream just out of reach. "You have arrived at the chasm," my reflection explained, gesturing to an endless horizon filled with limitless energy. Colors ebbed and flowed like waves, and the air hummed with a pulse that resonated through me. "Here, you will find clarity." "Clarity? You mean truth?" I raised an eyebrow, skepticism creeping in. The shadows I had left behind rushed back to the forefront of my mind. What did that mean? "What truth?" "Yes," it replied, the tone now tinged with purpose. "But understanding comes at a cost. You must confront what you've suppressed, your fears, regrets, and desires. Only then can you emerge unscathed from the darkness." I wanted to scream. "More choices, more fear. Why can't this just be over?" The figure studied me for a moment, its eyes reflecting empathy. "It is not a punishment. It's an opportunity. The shadow you encountered wants to keep you trapped in despair, using your own history against you." I shuddered. The echoing laughter lingered, and I could feel its sinister pull tugging at the edges of my mind. "Let's begin." The figure stepped forward, blowing away invisible dust collected in the air. Suddenly, scenes exploded into view. There I was in the living room of my childhood home, aged yet innocent. I relived that moment, the fear of the dark, the name I whispered when the lights went out. I felt trapped again, my lungs tightening as I witnessed myself cower beneath the covers, unable to articulate my fright. "Why is this happening?" I cried, urgency clawing at me. "To purge it, you must feel it," my reflection insisted. "Face the terror that has held you captive." Suddenly the room began shifting. The walls flickered like an old film reel and figures emerged, the very shadows I thought I escaped, splintering like dark water. I took an instinctual step back. "No, stay away," I shouted, but the figures advanced toward me, the closer ones taking familiar shapes. Friends I had distanced myself from, moments I had buried. "Feel it," my reflection urged, and as dread washed through me, I realized these shadows were fragments of myself, pieces I'd thrown away in a desperate attempt to push down the pain of the past. The whispers swelled, drowning out the light. "Come back to us," they chimed, voices layered with longing. I felt their pull, an unbearable desire to run. But instead, I stood my ground. "I won't be afraid anymore," I shouted, gripping the pendant tightly. The warmth radiated through my fingertips, lighting a fire in my heart. In that moment, I began to acknowledge their presence, allowing the emotions flooding me to surface. The shadows stilled, and in their stillness, the echoes of despair faded. Memories washed over me, not as burdens, but as pieces of my journey. I took a deep breath, my voice steadier now. "You are my truth. You won't control me." With those words, the scene exploded. The shadows warped and twisted, their forms shimmering brighter in the light. The air thickened, then burst open with color, swirling around me in kaleidoscopic patterns. I felt released, every ounce of weight dissipating with each breath until I stood effectively unbound. I gasped, feeling lighter, freer. The figures around me began to pull back, revealing a path stretching through the horizon, a road that was both familiar and foreign. "Now, you can choose." My reflection spoke softly. "Stay and learn the depths of your truth, or walk away, carrying this understanding into your life. You have conquered the darkness." I felt the weight of time pressing down. Would I see those shadows again? Would they ever truly leave me? Questions lingered, but clarity emerged in their face. "You're a part of me," I said, gazing at the figures before me. As I stepped onto the path, a rush of warmth enveloped me. I felt both exhilarated and terrified of what lay ahead, each step a testament to survival. The shadows receded into memory, their voices softening to whispers. "What do you choose?" My reflection called one last time, urgency trailing its voice. I took a deep breath. I choose to live. As the world around me erupted into light, a blend of shadows and brilliance, the space pulsed with the energy of possibilities. I stepped forward, remembering the past, but glimpsing the future. The questions, both mundane and mystifying, still there, lingering, as I ventured on. I don't think I'll ever forget those nights on the country roads. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder if those figures still linger in the woods or if they've moved on. Mostly, though, I try not to think about it.